Would you ever pretend to buy a baby off the black market for an article? What about fake insanity so well to expose torture? Or put your reputation on the line when you had exactly zero proof that you could break a record set by a fictional character? Well, Nellie Bly did. She was a menace to the big man, and I'm here for it. She was a very controversial figure in history, and today I'm going to tell you how she changed the world, and you are going to help me answer the question, can a lie be morally justified? Hello and welcome. My name is Mavis Shahar, and if you enjoy the human condition, dark history, or the color green, hit that like and subscribe button for me. Don't miss out. Don't do it. So, Bly put in the spotlight something called stunt journalism and stunt girls. Stunt journalism is similar to undercover journalism, but you do stunts. It makes sense. Bly specifically influenced the stunt girls back in the day, and these girls would give themselves fake personas and document their findings in situations. But there are some heavy moral questions surrounding stunt journalism. Is deception acceptable if the truth is unreachable? Does entering suffering spaces as an outsider exploit the people who are actually trapped there? And who bears the responsibility if the stunt goes wrong? Can moral intent excuse unethical methods? So many questions. So many non-answers. But let me know what you think below in the comments, before and after hearing her story. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to know your answers to these questions. Anyway, Nellie was not actually the first person to do stunt journalism, but she was the first female to do it and kind of make it popular. She changed the way journalism was done by basically saying, yeah, I bet I can prove you wrong on that. Her story starts off in a small town with some definite family tea. She was born on May 5th of 1864 in Cochrane Mills, Pennsylvania, and Nellie Bly isn't actually her real name. It's Elizabeth Jane Cochrane, and she was born to Michael Cochrane and Mary Jane Kennedy Cummings. Her father was a well-known and respected man at the time. I mean, the town literally was named after him, I think. Things were great until she was 6. Unfortunately, he passed away when Elizabeth was 6 years old in 1870, which left legal battles for the estate and a whole mess of things. And her mom was like, well, now what? You know, back in that era, women were fighting for their rights, and it was near impossible to be a single mother and be okay, basically. So, Mary Jane, she remarried to a man named John Jackson. And this is where Elizabeth/Nellie acquired some of the incredible skills that she used in her journalism. So Elizabeth grew up in a very chaotic household with roughly 14 other siblings, half and step siblings, but sources differ on the numbers, so we're just gonna stick to 14. But she learned how to do things like read a room really quickly, how to locate resources, and how to notice power dynamics between people. Childhood can really shape your future in interesting ways. Anyways, Bly saw the marriage go badly between her mother and John. Come to find out, John was actually an abuser, and I believe I read that he had been divorced once or twice before. And her mother just couldn't take it anymore. Though it was really frowned upon, as well as socially and financially damaging, Nellie's mom, Mary Jane, was granted a divorce. It was really needed. Definitely needed. And this left a lasting impact on Nellie. When she was old enough, she was off to college, but it was a very short ride. She went to Indiana Normal School, today known as Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, she had to leave due to lack of funds, and she didn't finish with any formal degree. She moved back home with her mom, and in 1885, the Pittsburgh Dispatch published an opinion piece by columnist Erasmus Wilson titled, "What Are Girls Good For?" I saw your face drop, ladies. Don't worry, it gets a little worse. Erasmus actually argued that women were only naturally suited for marriage and domestic labor. Working women were basically a menace to society and a threat to a stable family. Women who saw independence were unfeminine, unnecessary, and very, very disruptive. Oh yeah, ladies, did that make you giggle too? Anyways, Nellie wrote back about this article and shocked everyone. She penned the piece, The Girl Puzzle, and signed it Lonely Orphan Girl as a pseudonym. She rejected the idea that women were intellectually inferior and that women worked out of necessity and not rebellion. She also pointed out that not all women were married and had protectors, and economic realities in the world were demanding more and more independence. She did not argue emotionally. She did not ask for sympathy. She framed women as rational, capable, and morally and intellectually equal to the male. The newspaper's response, you ask? Oh, the editor of the Pittsburgh Dispatch, George Madden, was struck with the rebuttal. There was clarity, there was confidence, and there was not a single note of hysteria. He published the letter, and when he asked, hey, who is the lonely orphan? Elizabeth/Nellie Bly answered him. She was given a job nearly on the spot, and they gave her the pen name, Nellie Bly. After being hired, she was swiftly placed in a domestic-only's assignments like soft women pages and stuff like that. She wrote in some of her correspondence that she felt sidelined and constrained by gender expectations, and she hungered for more. And she finally got it. Our girl Nellie used logic, wit, and sheer willpower to convince the Dispatch to send her to Mexico as a foreign correspondent at 22 years old. She traveled there alone and stayed for nearly 6 months, and the work that she did there transformed her. What she did basically got her ran out of the country, though. She was reporting on things like political corruption, imprisonment of journalists, poverty, inequality, living conditions. You name it, she was covering it. And this was very dangerous reporting at the time. She was threatened with arrest and forced to flee back home from Mexico. When she came back, she was in a little bit of a lull, though. I think in Mexico, she found the passion of covering stories for justice. She left the Pittsburgh Dispatch, struggled to find work that matched her ambition, and she was a woman, so she was repeatedly rejected from newspapers in New York City. Too risky, too radical, too female. But by late 1887, she finally found and coerced her way into the office of Joseph Pulitzer of the New York World. She pitched herself as a journalist, and the agreement was that she would fake insanity to get into a women's insane asylum and report her findings. Pulitzer was shocked, but approved of this, and she left the name Nellie Bly behind her and took up the name Nellie Brown. She had no idea how, but she was gonna get it done. She went to a women's only boarding house and stayed awake all night, talked calmly but incoherently, claimed loss of memory, and stared blankly for hours at the wall. She also claimed to be Cuban, displaced, and without a family, and from some reports even talked to rats. Is it too late to give her an Oscar for this method acting? Is it? However, she kept it controlled to see how much evidence would be needed to be declared insane. The other women were terrified, and the police were called on September 25th of 1887, and she was taken to the Women's Lunatic Asylum on Blackwell's Island. And there, she reported on slews of atrocities. She underwent a psychiatric evaluation at Bellevue Hospital and was examined by multiple doctors, briefly, and without any, condemning evidence. They declared her insane beyond a doubt. Beyond a doubt, this crazy. She appeared before a judge shortly after, and the doctors testified, and she had no legal representation. And this shows us that medical opinion replaced due process. In the asylum, she went back to being normal, talking normal, speaking fine, and they didn't believe that she was sane. She endured ice baths, spoiled food, physical abuse by the nurses, forced silence, and sitting for hours. No heat, no protective clothing, benches instead of beds, and just reading about it, it was awful. She actually found that a lot of the women there were not mentally ill. They were immigrants, women abandoned by their families, and women deemed an inconvenience, or a menace to society, whatever you want to call it. She even noted that some women became mentally ill because of the conditions there. After 10 days of hell, lawyers secured her release, and the doctors actually abruptly reversed their diagnosis, and then had the balls to claim that they knew that she was sane the whole time. I knew she was sane all along. Meh. What she did was the start of the stunt girl era. She paved the path and also raised valid questions. Is it ethical to lie like that? Is the deception morally justified? The public response to her article, then to her book, 10 Days in a Madhouse, went nuts. Viral by today's equations. Massive outrage towards the facilities, a demand for a formal investigation order, and a $1 million increase in funding, which today would be equivalent to $30 million-ish. She brought about massive change with this risky stunt. Tactically, she used the system's own authority against itself, and she documented the process, not using any anecdotes, but exposed the conditions and how easily sanity was stripped away in the madhouse. In 1888, she also went undercover as a working woman and took jobs in factories, sweatshops, and domestic services, and then she published an article exposing the unsafe work conditions, exploitation, and the women and girls' employers abusing their powers with working them long hours and with very little pay. And then in that same year, she investigated illegal infant adoption / baby brokering. In this stunt, she exposed to the masses how easily babies could be transferred with no oversight. Some secondary sources say that money exchanged hands with no background checks, paperwork, or even any concern for the child. Nellie was on the case about child trafficking, vulnerabilities, lack of legal protection, and exploitation of poor, desperate women just trying to survive. At the end of 1880 and into 89, she investigated a women's detention center too and exposed the abuse and lack of due process similar to her stunt with the insane asylum. She's got insane grit and drive. Do you remember that book, Around the World in 80 Days? She was just so inspired by it that she pulled that stunt in 72 days, 6 hours, and 11 minutes. She broke all kinds of gender norms in her day, and the biggest headline, out of that whole trip, she was only taking one bag with her at the time, in a time that women carried droves of luggage, multiple chests for dresses. But she did it with one bag and one dress. She proved that women could indeed travel alone, fast, and report globally on it. She used the public attention to shatter the gender limits and use visibility as pressure. After that, she was officially a celebrity. Promotions, public appearances, and lighter work assignments. Remember, fame did not translate to power for women at this time, even for the extraordinary ones. In 1895, she made an exit from the journalism scene by marrying a man named Robert Livingston Seaman, a very wealthy industrialist. She was 31 at the time, and he was 70. This shocked the public. It's me, I'm the public. It shocked me. She became invested and active in her husband's business. After his death, though, she took over and became the president of the Ironclad Manufacturing and one of the first women industrial executives in the United States. She implemented better wages, worker welfare, programs, and safety improvements. She applied her ethics to the industry, but unfortunately, she trusted managers too much and some embezzled funds and other things happened, and the company did end up going bankrupt. Did that stop our Nellie, though? No, it did not. It freed her, if anything. She took journalism back up in her 50s. What did she do, you ask? Well, she became a war correspondent, and she helped document World War I in Eastern Europe and the Austro-Hungarian front. She focused on civilians, women, refugees, and the cost of war for the ordinary people. After the war, Nellie moved back to New York and unfortunately passed away January 27th of 1922 with pneumonia at age 57. She was buried at Woodland Cemetery in the Bronx. But during her life, she inspired entire generations. She was not the only stunt girl. Shocker. She inspired the famous Elizabeth Bisland, who competed with Bly actually in her World Around the Race, Eva McDonald Valish, who went undercover as a factory worker to expose factory conditions, Elizabeth Banks, who repeatedly tested the legal systems by getting arrested, Bessie Betty, who covered the Russian Revolution and crossed areas that were denied to women. A whole generation was inspired by her bravery. So, do you think that a lie can be morally justified now that you've learned all this? Bly definitely lied. She absolutely lied her off. She pretended to be insane, powerless, and invisible, but when she did, the truth poured out and the evils came to light, and the abuse, corruption, silence, neglect, all of it. So maybe the better question isn't whether Nellie was justified. Maybe it's this: what kind of system only tells the truth when it's tricked into it? Because Nellie didn't break the rules for fun. She broke them because the rules were protecting the wrong people. And if honesty only works when power allows it to, then was it ever really honest to begin with? It's time to take a closer look at the systems surrounding us today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.